In today's interconnected world, cybersecurity is a major concern. To protect sensitive information and critical systems from cyber threats and technological advancements, effective governance strategies are essential. Taking proactive measures, collaborating, and implementing robust policies are crucial to addressing this pressing issue. We are honored to have Deputy Chief Executive Mohan Datwani of the Hong Kong Chartered Governance Institute as our distinguished guest in this video. Mr. Datwani will be presenting a report on corporate governance and risk management, which will provide valuable insights into how organizations can enhance their cybersecurity measures.
We recently did a research on cybersecurity, and we thought it would be a good idea to share with everybody. So, over the next hour, I'm going to go through our research and hopefully, offer you some insights. Today's lecture is about corporate governance and risk management and cybersecurity in that context. The first thing is anybody who's interested in corporate governance needs to know the definition of corporate governance. So this is something called the G20 OECD Principles of Corporate Governance. And it says, corporate governance involves a set of relationships between a company's management, board, shareholders, and stakeholders. Corporate governance also provides the structure and systems through which the company is directed and its objectives are set, and the means of attaining those objectives and monitoring performance are determined. So a lot of people looking at corporate governance really have no idea what we're talking about. So yeah, we got ideas of systems of control, etc. But recently, there's something that's taking hold, which is called risk management. So what are risks? Risk is uncertainty in outcome. So therefore, if you have something you want as an outcome, and there are uncertainties, that are risks. And risk could be positive or negative. And therefore, in this particular context, first of all, when we talk about cybersecurity, we need to really look at what is the purpose of the organization. And if there is a cyber attack, would that create risk on the organization? I think there are very few questions where the answer is definitely yes. Okay? So therefore, if you are subject to a cyber attack, you will be under a risk to your desired outcome. So that's the difference between corporate governance and risk management. Really, you have to look at the purpose of the organization and look at the outcome. And in this case, you would see that cyber is definitely one of the top risk profile. Now, you don't have to take my word for this. This is a research done by PwC. And basically, if you look at the graph here, it says that cyber risk is a top risk. So we look at this. So right now, inflation and macroeconomic volatility and geopolitics is a little bit higher than cyber risk. But down the line in the next 5 years, you could see almost an equal weight between macroeconomic volatility, inflation, geopolitical conflicts, and cyber risk. So basically, this is like a top-line risk over the next 5 years. And since you are all involved in finance and also in governance, it is really important for you to understand that cyber risk and cybersecurity is actually a potential growth area for all of you from the governance point of view, because it is a top risk for the outcome of the organization, for the purpose of the organization. So inflation and macroeconomic volatility stand out more prominently than other key threats in the next 12 months than over the 5 years. But the next 5 years, definitely, cyber risk is a big issue. So in that context, we thought of doing a research on the topic with PwC. So the whole purpose of this lecture is to showcase this report, which is between the Hong Kong Chartered Governance Institute, which we have 10,000 members and students, with PwC, a global accounting firm, which is also an advisory firm and also in consultancy and other business. So I wrote the report and with a very, very good friend called KT Gang. Mr. Gang is the head of PwC's partner in cybersecurity. And we decided to call this report Cybersecurity Plugging the Hole. And it's through testing, policies, and training. We just recently published this like 2 weeks ago. Please, take a read at this particular paper, and you will be quite impressed with how enjoyable it is. Now, first thing is we ask what are the system vulnerabilities that there are. So we asked a question, which is question number 8. There was like 26 questions. Please choose from the list of cyber threats that your organization has faced and or is facing. So Hong Kong Chartered Governance Institute is really about practical applied governance. And therefore, we ask really practical questions. We don't go wishy-washy and ask you all sorts of funny questions. We just say, have you faced these threats? And the most important thing is, if you look at the next page, on the very, very last line, it says on average, there were 2.38 incidences of cyber threats faced and or is facing by each respondent. That means that all the people that we've asked have said that they have faced multiple cyber threats. Think about this, it's not just sitting here, we might get attacked or whatever. It is you will get attacked. And the incidence is 2.38 times. So we asked, have you been attacked by malware? So I'm sure you know what malware is. These are viruses, worms, trojans, ransomware, spyware, adware, and other types of malicious software. So really software-based. Have you been attacked by phishing attacks? So these include spear phishing, whaling, and other forms of social engineering. Believe me, social engineering is actually a big, cyber threat. Denial of service attacks, DOS and DDoS. So basically, someone puts so much information into your server that, you absolutely cannot handle whatever you're doing. So that's denial of service attack. Advanced persistent threats, man-in-the-middle attacks, so someone pretending to be the middle, MITM. SQL injection attacks and different types of web application attacks. So web application is something you plug in, that leads to an attack. Cryptojacking attacks, unauthorized use of computing resources to mine cryptocurrencies. In fact, there was a university that actually had a lot of electricity stolen from their servers to mine Bitcoins. Okay, this actually happened for some universities. Insider threats, including accidental and deliberate actions by employees or contractors. Botnets and botnets attacks, zero-day exploits and other vulnerabilities in software and hardware. I don't think I should go into each particular definition. You can see, oh my God, there's actually a lot of stuff that is subject to cyber attacks. So the answer choices was that we actually, if you look at the bottom line, we have 1,426 responses. So this particular research report, we're really proud because we have over 1,400 responses. Which is pretty impressive. And we are asking directors, company secretaries, and other professionals, what do they think? So if you look at it, again, 986 out of 1,400 people have actually been hit by malware, 828 by phishing, and then the other gets less. But therefore, you could see that malware and phishing attacks are actually the biggest cyber threats. And again, there are 2.38 incidences of cyber threats for everyone concerned. So if we summarize it a little bit, so from the research answers and questions, ransomware is a big issue. So what is ransomware? It is basically malware, so a program that encrypts a victim's data and demands payment in exchange for the decryption key. Tell me, please show me your hand if you've not heard of what ransomware is. I think it's like one of the best talked about issue in the marketplace. A denial of service attack. So attacks that overwhelm a target system or network with traffic so that unavailable for legitimate users. So for example, if you're an airline selling tickets, and I throw a lot of junk into you, you actually can't buy the ticket and you suffer loss. And not only you suffer loss, your clients will be really upset that, we cannot fly out somewhere. Phishing, an attack that uses phony emails or websites to deceive victims into divulging private information like passwords or credit card numbers. I mean, we have training even at HKCGI for staff that, please be careful with phishings. You could actually look at the website address because half the time that when you look at a website address, it's actually truncated, it's small because you didn't blow up your screen. But if you blow it up, you could actually absolutely see, it is not the real Yahoo, it's not the real Google. So you could actually see if you really put a little bit of attention and care instead of just having blind faith. This is the cyber world. We have to be really careful. Okay. Man-in-the-middle attack allows the attacker to overhear, alter, or inject data into a conversation between two parties or intercepting their connections. You could routinely buy devices in Amazon, etc., to basically, get information in the middle. It's actually quite low tech in the marketplace. Advanced persistent threats are prolonged focused attack using cutting-edge methods to infiltrate a target system or network, such as social engineering, zero-day exploits, and lateral movement. Malware, software that aims to harm, interfere with, or access a computer system or network without authorization. Insider threat, a threat posed by personnel, subcontractors, or other vetted insiders who have access to confidential information or system that might abuse the access. Supply chain attacks, an attempt to target organizations' systems or data while targeting a third-party vendor or supplier. I think up to this point, it seems like it's pretty scary, right? It's not just one or two things. It's a whole bunch of things that people have. Before the lecture, there was an award for creativity. So the creativity of cyber attackers and hackers are to no ends. It is really very important for you to understand that, cyber is a real big issue. So this is the paradigm example. This is one of the most talked about examples in the world. The attack on the US-based Colonial pipeline in May 2021, which is only 2 years ago, resulted in a sizable payment. Gasoline and other petroleum products are delivered to the eastern and southern part of the United States via Colonial pipeline. Think about it. We're talking about oil and gas on a pipeline, which is now subject to ransomware. Big deal, right? It is big deal. It was big deal. So it is a significant fuel pipeline. The business was subject to a ransomware attack by the Dark Side Gang in May 2021. Now, if you were Colonial, will you pay? Yeah, smart. They actually did. Of course, the gentleman there knows the answer. So due to Colonial Pipeline's forced shutdown of operations due to the attack, there were fuel shortages and price increase across much of the U.S. Think about it. If gasoline price goes up 10 cents, people are up in arms in the U.S., okay? Really, gasoline price is like the biggest thing in the U.S. The biggest complaint right now about the economy is that the prices in California has gone up to 100%. So Colonial Pipeline paid the assailants a US $4.4 million ransom in response to the episode and to retake control of the system. So there was a $4.5 million US payment by ransomware. The ransom payment has generated a debate because it encourages other ransomware operations. Think about it. If you are sitting there and you are Colonial Pipeline, you are one of the leading organizations shipping oil and gas. Now, doing the right thing is not to pay the ransomware. But every minute I'm losing so much money. And $4.4 million, big deal. If I get a consultant in, etc., it would be more than that. So commercially, you justify. But at the same time, what is the real repercussion of this event? Is it money? Is $4.4 million a big deal to Colonial Pipeline where it sells oil and gas? Anybody, yes or no? No, right? It is no big deal at all. But what is the big deal here? The big deal is the repercussion of the reputation. So therefore, you can start seeing that, a lot of times that, with cyber attacks, it is a balancing position. You've got to balance a lot of risk. In this case, there is a big repercussion, which is, and they'll be talked on forever as the paradigm example of a ransomware attack because of this. So the ransom payment has generated debate because it encourages other ransomware operations. Colonial Pipeline clarified that it paid to resume operations and lessen customer impact promptly. So of course, their PR have to say that. Colonial Pipeline attack is one of the well-publicized ransomware attacks that have recently targeted businesses worldwide. These attacks underscore organizations need to adopt efficient cybersecurity measures to avoid and mitigate such attacks because they might have significant financial and operational repercussions. Another example, which is not in my slide, is the Panama Paper attack. Have you heard of the Panama Paper attack recently? This is back in 2014. There were files that was leaked from a law firm, which shows that a lot of rich folks have been using offshore companies to basically have questionable transactions. I don't want to say money laundering, but led to the whole world being very focused on money laundering by entities or what we call trust and corporate service providers. Again, that was actually because of an attack, a cyber attack. Someone just basically got in through VPN into the mainframe and pulled out all the documents of the law firm. So that law firm is called Mossack. It's a very famous case, and there are actually movies that have been done on that. Again, that's really a cyber attack. So you can see there how important this is. And it was actually a global game changer for anti-money laundering regulations. So what are the breach repercussions? We touch on that. So we actually didn't want to just tell people what are the breach repercussions. We actually went ahead and asked them. So we said, what were the repercussions of a cybersecurity breach at your company? So we asked, is it a loss of money? That means the breach resulted in financial losses. So like Colonial pipeline, 4.4 mil, that is money, right? Damages to reputation, the breach resulted in a reputational damage. Both, the breach resulted in both financial losses and reputational damage. Possible breach of government rules and regulations, no adverse effects. I'm pretty interested why people say that there's no adverse effect, but 20% of the people thought that there's no adverse effect. Pretty interesting, huh? Not really sensible answer, but I can't say that the 249 people who responded, or the 40 people, are not sensible. But it's really quite mind-boggling that there is no significant effect. So loss of money, again, if you look at the very, very bottom line, on average, there was 1.70 adverse repercussions. So between 1 and 2 adverse repercussions from a cyber threat or cyber security issue. So loss of money, over half says that this cyber attack on us have led to our organization losing money. Damages to reputation, again, over half, so it's almost 60%, says that there is actually a damage to our reputation. Both, there's 0%. I don't get this also. Why is there no both? Maybe people are not really thinking through, but if you get an attack and people know about it, there is actually, reputational damage. Maybe they haven't thought about it enough. Then the next one is possible breach of government rules and regulations, 34%. That's around a third. So I don't know if you know about the data privacy ordinance. There is actually a law, and I'm actually a solicitor, unfortunately, in my previous life, which I cannot get rid of. Rules and regulations, there's a lot of privacy regulations right now on. So if you got a breach, there's no mandatory reporting for breaches, but soon it will come. And there'll be more regulations in the pipeline. And there's in the elsewhere in UK, if you got operation, there's GDPR. In Europe, there's GDPR. Anyway, so that is the little snapshot. So everybody feels that, at least there's going to be some loss of money or some damages to reputation. And in general, there's a 1.7 hit on this. So different outcomes are possible depending on the types and extent of the breach. Some possible repercussions include financial losses. The firm or people whose information have been compromised may suffer financial losses due to the cyber breach. This may result from financial theft, dishonest commercial dealings, or loss of business opportunities. I think you've seen so many cases being reported that someone pretends to be another person. Right now, when we are in the age of the deep fake, basically, there are people calling you up, wanting to talk to you, and all they want is actually a recording of your voice because they know everything about you already. All they need for the AI to generate sort of your image to get into your account, etc., is actually your voice, so that it's not even your voice quality, it's the punctuation, how you speak. If you actually know cybersecurity, when you do the captcha, it's actually not really what you click, it's the way you click it. So that's what they're trying to get you in the AI arena. By the way, I'm not a really AI tech. I'm a pretend expert. The real experts are actually people like Katie Gang and the cybersecurity experts. I learned from them, okay? But I know that, now that there's actually a lot of issues that, we really don't understand. Reputational damage, it's a damage to a company's reputation from cyber attack, which could result in a decline in customer confidence and trust. So you deposit money with a bank and the bank has a cyber attack. What do? Do you bank with that bank, or do you take the money and take it to another bank? I don't know. Well, in Hong Kong, at least we are safe. Because there is a deposit insurance scheme. So this may make it challenging to draw in new clients or keep hold of current ones. Legal repercussions. A cyber breach may have legal implications for the organizations or people who committed the violation, which could involve penalties, lawsuits, or even criminal prosecutions. I mean, in Hong Kong, probably the regulation is a little bit weak, but actually elsewhere, you really could be facing a lot more consequences for breaches of privacy law. And in Hong Kong, we are going to enhance our privacy law. It's coming. Data losses. A cyber breach may cause data loss, which can be disastrous for a business or a person. This can include private information, intellectual property, or delicate commercial information. You do not pay a ransomware attacker, and they tell you that in 24 hours, we're going to wipe out everything, all your client database, which you've accumulated over the last 30 years. If that happens, what happens? So the morality and the business expediency might actually conflict. So somehow, again, you've got to balance your position, make sure that, your viability is there. Of course, it would be great if you have cybersecurity, but cybersecurity is only as weak as your weakest link. If someone who's a junior employee looks at the internet, goes on social media using the firm's computer, clicks in a link, bye-bye to all of you, okay, to the whole organization. So really, it is actually as strong as the weakest link, or as weak as the weakest link. A service interruption, cyber breach may result in loss of productivity or downtime. This may hinder a business ability to run efficiently and cost money. So again, if I have a cyber attack as an airline company, then what happens? So, there were recently sale of low-price tickets by some airlines. If I wanted to have some fun with, the airline company, I could just do a denial of service attack. And everybody, all the newspaper will be talking about how lousy this company is. In fact, even without that, they were being complained yesterday in South China Morning Post. But, think about it. We can exacerbate that a lot if we really go into cyber attack mode. So, we have to plan for all these firewalls, defenses, etc. in this way. So now, what about directors? If you actually recall, a long time ago, we started with a slide saying that, there needs to be control mechanisms, understanding of strategy. So basically, a company needs to know where it's going, what is its purpose, to set its vision and mission, stuff that you read in your book when you read finance, right? But it is very important to identify the purpose of an organization. And, with that purpose, the directors are supposed to move the company towards that purpose. And so what about directors? Directors, because they need to understand there is a cyber risk, they should have responsibility. It's part of their fiduciary duty. If you also study company law, directors are fiduciary of a company. So it's a mix and match between legal and governance, okay? So directors have a really important role to play in cybersecurity. That's the assumption. But let's look at the results, shall we? We asked the question, and this is the number one question that I asked. What role does your board of directors play in your organization's cybersecurity governance? Little involvement, with only high-level suggestions or supervisions, moderate level, some periodic risk assessment and or planning, active participation, regular risk reduction, cybersecurity status updates, actively leading. So if you were running a company, would you think that cybersecurity is important? Yes or no? Right? Yes, right? But 10% thinks actively leading 10%. So 10% actively answers yes. So what are our directors doing? Because the directors don't actually appreciate that there is this issue. So little involvement, you can look at it as almost a third of the 1,400 people that actually look at cybersecurity. They said a third of our directors don't really care about cybersecurity. That's absolutely mind-boggling to me, okay? I think all of us sitting here would say that, oh, come on, give me a break, Why? Moderate level, 33%. So 2/3 of our directors don't really care about cybersecurity. A bit shocking, though. So active participation, regular risk reduction, and actively leading. So that actually is around a third. So you basically have companies that oscillate between I really don't care to, well, I care a little bit. to I really, really care. So it is not my expectation. I sort of expect that even optically, they're going to say that we really care, but the results are the results. And the results are, from company secretaries, directors, and other business leaders, and they say that to you. So is there a systemic issue from the governance point of view? Yes or no? Yes, right? So how high a priority does your board of directors place on cybersecurity as a significant business risk? Not a priority, little priority, moderate priority, top priority. So top priority, we got 21%. The answer earlier was 10%. So actively leading and active participation. And on those 40% people, around half of them actually put it as a top priority. So there is a top priority, continuous monitoring by 21% of the directors. But otherwise, it's not a priority. Not a priority is 12%. Little priority, 27%. 12 plus 27 is 39, right? And then moderate priority, 38. So moderate priority is not bad. So basically, we're saying that, the directors do care a little. We do implement a little, but actually, we don't really play a lot of role. We leave it to the cybersecurity team. We leave it to other people. Okay. So how frequently does your board examine your organization's cybersecurity strategy? So if you have cybersecurity, you must have a strategy to deal with cybersecurity, right? Otherwise, it doesn't make sense. Everything needs to have a strategy. So no review, there is no recollection of it being done. Infrequent review, some recollection of it being done a long time ago. Ad hoc, regularly. So the regular is actually quite good. That means at least annually, we look at the cybersecurity strategy. But actually, what really happens is you sit in a board meeting, a paper is presented to you. Let's be honest here, okay? So you sit in a meeting, some paper is presented to you, you look at it, there's a report, and you say, okay, fine, the strategy is sound. That's what normally happens, okay? So anyway, but let's take it at face value. So around a third of the directors actually, regularly look at this. But, ad hoc, infrequent, no review is 2/3 again. So basically, you could see that there's a disconnect. PwC and the rest of the world tells you that cybersecurity is one of the top few risks. In fact, some say top 5 risks, some say top 3 risks, okay? It depends on whoever you survey. But actually, the directors don't really pay the attention that they need to. And no criticism of directors because there are so many other things. There's ESG, there's climate change, there's so many other stuff. But then, cybersecurity is definitely one of the important issues that need to be addressed. Okay? So to what extent are directors trained in cybersecurity awareness? So that's a related question. Are they really trained on cybersecurity awareness about the dangers of cybersecurity and the guard against that? Widespread, occasional, none. So none is 30% around. I'm sorry, I tend to exaggerate the bad figures, okay? It's actually 27%, but let's just say 30%. Occasional, around 60%. So, we look at it periodically. So, what is occasional is actually a lot of time incident responses. So basically something happens and you have occasional. Widespread, there is 16%. So you would actually see that only again, this time even less than 20% really have, the training that they deserve. And occasional is, a lot of times after the incident responses. So has your board established a cybersecurity committee with clear roles and lines of authority? Now, interesting question, because assuming that the directors are not all knowledgeable on cybersecurity, would that be a reasonable assumption? I think that would be a reasonable assumption, right? Assuming a cybersecurity committee to help you. And the answer is no to 72%. So again, it's very, very limited. So the board of directors don't get enough training. Would that be a reasonable inference from the research? I think it is. So what about the internal team? This is very, very interesting result. Because one of the things is that we constantly see people thinking that they are doing better in governance than they are actually doing. This is so common. If you look at so many of my research papers, and I do a lot of research papers, it comes out that people always think that, they are doing better than themselves. And actually, this is something that you as the future would actually have to really tell people to instill in their mind. We look at it things honestly, okay? So this is going to be the conclusion, and I've sort of jumped to the conclusion already. But let's just look at the data. How would you rate the knowledge and competency of implementation by your organization's cybersecurity team? Highly knowledgeable, moderately knowledgeable, slightly knowledgeable, not at all knowledgeable, not sure. So highly knowledgeable is 17%, moderately knowledgeable, 48%. How much does that add up to? 65%. So around 2/3, of our internal team is actually knowledgeable. I mean, it is a little bit shocking that we hire people that are only slightly knowledgeable, not at all knowledgeable, and not sure to be our team member. So around 1/3 of the people that we hire, probably an issue of competency here. But 2/3, let's just say, okay, we think that around 2/3 of the guys that we hire are okay. Let's just assume that. What confidence do you have in the team currently in charge of your organization's cybersecurity? Very confident, somewhat confident, not very confident, not confidently at all, not sure. So we're very confident is 15%, somewhat confident 48%, so that's 63%. So again, we think that, we're very confident. But actually, if you contrast it, so we're hiring people that are highly knowledgeable around 17%. But somehow we've got a 70% confidence in the team that we hire. So it is, again, a thing that in which we simply hire someone and we filled in that position and we think. This is very common in governance, right? It's very common that you have a false sense of security. There is a false sense of security. Sorry, I'm not doing any good for my institute if I keep on sort of beating the directors and the cybersecurity professionals. I'm just saying that you have to spend a little bit of resources to hire people that actually are able to do the job. And there is always a disconnect. It doesn't mean that you just hire someone they are competent. Okay, is that reasonable assumption? But actually, a lot of organizations, they think of that. They don't really look at the deeper issue. So what about controls? Has your business established a cybersecurity framework? A cybersecurity framework is a collection of guidelines for controlling and lowering cyber risk within an organization. It is totally shocking to me that even on paper, even in optics, only around half of them do that. Again, I'm biased. I should have said 60% instead of 50%, but I'm playing it as a negative story. So if you look at it, yes, 57%, no, 42%. Can you actually just at least write a piece of paper so that there is a hope for people to follow that piece of paper? No, there's half of the companies don't actually even have a cyber security framework when it is a top line risk. Is that not interesting to you? Does your business have cybersecurity measures in place to reduce online risks? Security controls are procedures and precautions that lessen or mitigate the dangers of an online threat. I recently published a paper on the 3 lines of defense with one of the really prestigious paper. And again, this is sort of this policy you need, and also you need measures, the business practices there. So yes or no? Yes, 75%, but no, 25%. So it's a very refreshing results. So we have not established a cybersecurity framework, but somehow we've got cybersecurity measures. Measures against what? If you don't even have a framework to measure it against, what are you measuring? I'm sorry, I'm so negative, okay, about all these happenings. It's not really nice of me to do this, but the Institute doesn't just take yes or no answers. We actually analyze the answers. So what about testing and scanning? So if there is a system there, you need to test it and you need to scan it, okay? Does that make sense? It does, right? So has your business performed penetration tests? Penetration testing, commonly called pen testing, examines an organization's computer networks and system for flaws that an intruder could exploit, so you can consider ethical hacking. I was speaking to one of the blue chip companies, and they routinely use ethical hacking because they are a big company, billions and billions of US dollar in market cap. They actually engage in ethical hacking. So the answer is yes to 50% and no to 50% of that. So it's not that bad already, the result. But then, ethical hacking is actually very important. So what's ethical hacking? basically you give people an access to the system to hack it. Okay. So has your business scanned for cyber vulnerabilities? That means identifying security holes and vulnerabilities in an organization computer system and network is a process known as vulnerability scanning. And yes, by 63%, and no, by 37%. Has your business tested for social engineering, testing employees' vulnerability to cyber attacks that uses social engineering techniques like phishing, pretexting, and baiting is known as social engineering testing. Have you guys ever been approached by someone wanting your information on internet or WeChat? Do you not receive phone calls all the time? You look puzzled. You've never been actually asked to provide information to someone on the social media, on IG. So, I constantly, have people coming in and saying that, can you please send me some information about this and that? I nearly, even me, fail, for it, okay? So, it is pretty ingenious, the way they do things. So has your business tested web applications? Evaluating an organization's web apps to find security flaws is known as web application testing. This is actually important. So yes, no, again, half. So basically, half the companies are doing things that the testing that are needed. Has your business tested wireless network? The process of trying an organization's wireless network to find security flaws is known as wireless network testing. I think you would have heard a lot about, don't go to the airport and use a charger, right? Don't log on to a wireless network, right? Because, your information could be stolen. It's actually quite easy to do that. And we annually have training at our institute for our staff to show how this is done. Has your business used red teams? Red teaming is a form of cybersecurity testing that stimulates an attack on the network by an expert and determined foe. No, 75%, but 24% yes. So it's not as good. So this technique is actually not used much. Does your business have cybersecurity insurance? A normal business buys insurance, right? The insurance covers the risk. But most people don't actually buy cyber insurance. Only around 20% buy cyber insurance. That is actually quite a mind-boggling outcome for us. So that means that there is a lot of growth area for the insurance industry, which some of you are going to join. Okay, you can actually say that I heard a lecture from some silly guy long time ago about there needs to be insurance, and why don't we think about cybersecurity insurance as a product that we can sell to businesses? It is actually a business proposition. Okay, and hopefully I'm not just a silly guy. This is some of the conclusions that are actually written by me in the report. So specialized cybersecurity expert would be required to carry out particular tests for cybersecurity, including penetration testing. The following are some of the approaches that experts might use as part of the risk assessment. So penetration testing, also referred to as ethical hacking. This is actually a very important technique. Is the process of simulating a cyber attack on systems, networks, or applications of an organization to find weaknesses and vulnerabilities that a malicious actor could exploit. Vulnerability scanning entails employing automated technologies to search an organization's network and system for weaknesses that online criminals could use. Social engineering, this entails sending phony emails or messages to company employees to see if they are susceptible to social engineering assaults like phishing. So some of you, after hearing this lecture, could actually suggest to your organization that, we should trick our employees to see what they do. Web application testing entails checking a company's web applications for security flaws that online criminals might use, like structured query language injection or cross-site scripting. Wireless network testing, these are things that we need to do, okay? Wireless network testing involves examining a company's wireless network for holes and flaws that hackers could exploit, such as shoddy encryption and unprotected access points. Threat modeling, a process used to improve security by identifying potential threats and vulnerabilities in the system. It involves identifying and enumerating potential threats, such as structural vulnerabilities or the absence of appropriate safeguards and prioritizing countermeasures to address them. Red teaming, interesting, a technique for identifying vulnerabilities in an organization's overall cybersecurity postures by simulating a full-scale cyber attack against its system, networks, and personnel. This was done by the U.S. Department of Defense in America. They simulated a full-scale cyber attack on their system, and they came in with a 1,000-page report. You can go find it on the internet website. These are all real techniques that are actually being used by most sophisticated organizations. And in fact, other organizations should really follow suit. So one of the things that is actually interesting is that we looked at all these tests, etc. You really need a competent person to do this for you. And so in the research report, we actually put in the accreditation bodies and the individual that are accredited. So look at this. A lot of time we just go hire people because we think that, they come recommended, or they know cybersecurity, or we got a friend, or we're desperate for someone for cybersecurity expertise. They are really in short supply in Hong Kong, okay? But actually, are they accredited? Are they competent? So if you look at it, offensive security, example, penetration testing, red teaming, etc. There's Crest International, Offensive Security, SENSE Institute, and these are the accreditation of those individuals that are there. If you're looking at security operations, we're looking at the accreditation body called Offensive Security, SENSE Institute. If we're looking at incident responses, we're looking at Crest International, SENSE Institute. We look at threat intelligence, it's Crest International, SENSE Institute. Before you came to the lecture, you probably think the cybersecurity, interesting. Actually, it's painful because you have to look at what we are talking about, the type of security attacks, the type of incidences responses, the type of security measures. It could be offensive security, it could be security operation, it could be incident responses, it could be threat intelligence. And it goes on. There's actually a lot more people that need to be accredited. So therefore, when you hire someone, or maybe for you as an aspiring entrant to the marketplace, knowing that, cyber is a big area, you might want to be getting accreditation so that, your skills and expertise will be recognized. And you don't need Chinese language skills if you are a cybersecurity expert, okay? So I see a lot of ethnic minorities like myself, so, our Chinese is not as great as other people, which I'm trying to help also. But, it is also a really international area. The profession is really great. And therefore, there is actually a lot of area for you to expand into. So some more thoughts. So incorporate security into software development cycle from design to testing to deployment to ensure that applications are secure by default. So this is very similar to the GDPR provision of privacy by design. So in here, you really should think of security by design. You can develop and enforce strong identity and access management policies and procedures to ensure that only authorized users can access sensitive data and systems and adhere to the principles of least privilege. That means that information security concept, which maintains that a user or entity should only have access to the specific data, resources, and application needed to complete a required task, limit the information, the access to on a need basis. That's what it means, okay? Implement regular red teaming exercise, vulnerability assessment, and penetration testing to identify and remediate security vulnerabilities in your organization's systems and applications. Use security information and event management, SIEM, tools to monitor and detect potential cybersecurity incidences in real time. I hope I'm not losing all of you because you can see how incredibly technical I wrote this research report. But this is real stuff. This is how deep this subject really is. And I'm sorry to, it might seem a little bit too detailed, but actually it's a very valuable report. And PwC and I think the Institute did a great job in really pointing out really practical applied governance issues, which is what we are famous for. So regularly review and update your organization's security policies and procedures to ensure that they are up to date and effective. If you don't have a policy, how do you sort of tell staff that, you've done something wrong? because I'm the boss because I think you've done something wrong. No, there has to be a policy, okay? So use secure coding practices and conduct reviews to minimize the risk of vulnerabilities in applications and systems. Implement a data backup and recovery plan to ensure that critical data can be restored during a cybersecurity incident. A lot of organizations are now thinking of doing backup somewhere because of ransomware attack. So when the ransomware attack comes, we are basically losing 1 or 2 hours or half a day's data, which, will not kill the organization, but which, can also help us defend about, ransomware and other issues. So what's the worst case scenario? The worst case scenario is actually the pen and paper, copy down everything, okay? That's the ultimate security, right? If it is something that is that important, put it pen to paper, but I don't think it's actually really useful, but, sometimes maybe. So implement a data backup and recovery plan to ensure that critical data can be restored during a cybersecurity incident. Establish a cybersecurity incident response plan that outlines roles and responsibility, escalation procedures, and communication protocols in the event of security incident. Now, in Hong Kong, there's no mandatory breach reporting. It will come. But for example, in GDPR and other areas, there's actually this requirement. So if you have a multinational business, when you design all of these, you actually have to look at the toughest law in the jurisdiction and globally. So GDPR is amongst the toughest. So you actually look at the toughest law before you design the things. That's part of the requirement. So please, if one thing you can take away from this lecture is that, when you look at things, you will look at the highest horizon. It's not a local issue. It's an international issue. So establish a cybersecurity incident response that is to international standard. So use strong encryption algorithm and key management practices to protect sensitive data in transit and at rest, and conduct regular cybersecurity awareness training for employees to educate them on the latest cybersecurity threats and best practices. So if I don't know something, that means there's no problem. This is ignorant bliss. It's actually very, very nice because you sleep better at night. But actually, it is necessary to worry about all these issues. Ensure that your organization complies with applicable regulatory requirements and standards such as Personal Data Privacy Ordinance, General Data Protection Principle, GDPR, the China Personal Information Protection Law, PIPL, which deals a lot with transfer of data, and payment card industry security standards as appropriate. So monitor and assess third-party vendors and partners to ensure that they adhere to organization's cybersecurity standards. Implement a continuous monitoring process to evaluate and enhance an organization's cybersecurity architect and framework, and leverage cyber threat intelligence throughout the above mentioned. A lot of words are spoken. Actually, every single word is a practical tip to all of you. So at the end of the day, and we can end with this, we wrote a couple of imperatives. So while there's no one-size-fits-all in managing cyber risk, directors and governance professionals may improve their cybersecurity, proactively minimize cyber risks, and protect crucial assets and reputations in today's rapidly changing digital economies by concentrating on the following 5 imperatives. The first is prioritize cybersecurity testing. We went through a lot of different testing. The number one message of the report is that please test your system, okay? So you regularly conduct comprehensive testing, which must be by qualified and accredited individuals. You will be surprised how many people in the marketplace are actually not accredited for the purpose that you hire them for, right? So this includes, things like red teaming, penetration testings, vulnerability assessment, and social engineering simulations to stop possible cyber threats from taking advantage of vulnerabilities, identify weak points, and proactive measures to fix them. Second is to establish security policies and procedures. So this is to reduce potential vulnerabilities, develop and maintain current security policies, including scrutiny in software development life cycles, and promote secure coding practices. The third is actually implement something called Identity and Access Management, IAM policy, to manage access to sensitive data and systems, granting authorization only to authorized employees. Again, It is zero trust. There's no trust. You don't have to trust anybody. That's the whole point about cybersecurity. Don't trust anybody. You give them the minimum that you can. Doesn't mean that he's a boss, you give him everything, okay? We really have to look at this issue of least trust. And in fact, people like Peter Lucy talk about zero trust. There's no trust. Forget trust. Look at the system, okay? So monitor third-party cybersecurity risks. Your weakness is maybe your supplier. So if a supplier can actually access your mainframe to actually, put in data, etc., that actually is a very weak area. So you have to monitor not just your own cybersecurity risk, but your third-party cybersecurity risk. So to reduce risks related to external dependency, assess and evaluate the cybersecurity measures of third-party vendors and partners, and implement effective third-party risk management procedures to protect the organization's digital ecosystem. And finally, invest in cybersecurity awareness training. So maybe pay me to talk to your directors, but actually I can't charge you. Sorry. So these are awareness exercise, okay? So to promote a security-conscious culture, offer regular cybersecurity awareness training for stakeholders and employees, inform them of the most recent online dangers and safe practices for protecting digital assets and data. So we, as an institute, actually pay annually someone to come and talk to us. So we are the Chartered Governance Institute of Hong Kong. We believe in better governance, better futures, and this is our website. The cybersecurity research is only one of our papers. We got a lot on risk management and a lot of other guidance notes and research on technology. We have got papers on AI recently, which talks about the governance aspect of AI. Soft stuff, but very interesting. Thank you much.
Thank you.